I So I met Charles at a wonderful conference, the Black Enterprise Conference, and I was just so fascinated with his talk and with all the great information that he provided that I invited him to be speaker at an event last year, and he was so phenomenal. There was like, oh my gosh, Charles, like we have to have you back because more people need to hear this message. And so one of the things that I will say, last week we were so honored to have professional golfer Alexis Belton as our initial kickoff speaker. And she talked to us about having a championship mindset. And this week, what we're going to focus on is really making sure that as you are pivoting to your purpose, that you are taking time to also make sure that you are using data and insights to drive your decisions. So a lot of times, we can get so caught up in, oh my gosh, like I'm going through a lot of change right now. I'm feeling very uncomfortable. I'm just going to make some impulse decisions. And what I want us to take from today's presentation is really making sure that as you're, managing through this global change management that we're all going through right now with this global pandemic, that you're also taking time to make sure that you are viewing data and using data to make informed decisions. And so with that, I am really excited to have Charles on today as he is going to take us through some great information on really using analytics to inform either your career if you're a corporate professional, or for my entrepreneurs on the call to inform some of your business decisions. And so with that, Charles Thomas, you guys have all read his bio when you registered to attend today. He is the Chief Data and Analytics Officer for General Motors, and just someone who has just an extensive, deep background in data science. And I am not going to steal any more of Charles's time because I really want you guys to have the most time to be able to ask questions and really get this great information. We have reserved about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of the call for questions. So as you have questions, if you could please type them in the chat function, and we will be monitoring that to go ahead and make sure that we steward those questions to Charles at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, Charles, we're so excited to have you. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for the opportunity to interfere in your shelter-at-home lives. My heart, thoughts, and prayers go out to those who have lost loved ones, and many of us have been touched personally, or we know of someone, and that really personalizes the situation we're in. And just wanted to let's just always be mindful of those people, the people who are first critical roles, people who are first responders, people who are working at our grocery stores, just to make sure that we're fed. Let's always keep them in mind and be gracious towards them when we have the opportunity to interact with them. So let's go to the next slide, and I'll walk you through what I plan on talking about. This is a repeat of the presentation that I gave, I guess that was over a year ago, at a supplier diversity. Was hosting, and not just hosting, she was sponsoring it. And Monica we met at that conference a couple years ago, the Black Enterprise Conference, and she said, hey, I want you to come speak at my conference. I'm like, okay. But she was serious, and she came back, and I started kind of following her on LinkedIn and seeing what she's up to. And I really just respect not only the grind from the business side, but how she's really trying to cultivate, Black leadership and leadership among women. And I just think that's just an amazing thing, and I love to get behind. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So this is a presentation about data and analytics, but it's also, there's some nuggets in how to market yourself, how to tell your story, and how to really, story tell. That's a really critical thing, no matter what kind of profession you're in. I'm going to break down analytics on a very simple level and talk to you about customer experience. It doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. It doesn't matter where your business is. It doesn't matter whether you do business with other businesses or with consumers. And then I'll close it out a little bit with just some parting words with the Q&A. And just make sure my timer's on here. Okay, so next slide. These build. So you got to be able to tell your story. This is my wife and kids. Next month we will be married 25 years, and we've been together 30 years. My son Chad there is 19. He's a freshman at New York University, so he's bummed about having to be back in Austin. My daughter Chloe just turned 16, and she's bummed because she couldn't go down to the driver's license office and get her driver's license. So everybody's a little bummed, but we're healthy and we're happy. So we really have nothing to complain about. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I consider that the Kourtney Kardashian of Louisiana, so not as famous as her sister, New Orleans, but still in the family. Keep going, keep looking through. I am a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated since fall of 1991. My PhD is from Yale. I've worked at the following companies below, doing chief-like jobs. I was fortunate enough to be named to the Black Enterprise Most Powerful Executives list that came out a couple of years ago. And I was also elected to be a member of the Executive Leadership Council, which is the premier organization among Black executives globally. And then finally, I'm working at General Motors in Detroit. I live in Austin. I have an office here. I have an office in Detroit, and I spend quite a bit of time in Detroit. Next slide, please. Okay, so you got to be able to tell your story. In essence, you can understand my career through the lens of how data have become important and grown in the history of business. So in the late 1990s, I started off my career as an individual contributor, really rewarded for staying all night, take pride in doing that and what have you, and really just being the go-to smart guy. The motto of this slide is what got you here won't get you there. So in other words, the things that I was doing in this first column would make me not as successful if I continued doing them into the next column, which is the early 2000s. All right, so I, very purposefully wanted to make sure that I had a broad set of skills within this sphere of analytics, not knowing back then that there would ever be such a thing as a chief data and analytics officer or anything like that. But I knew that I wanted to get to the top, and by doing so, what I needed to do was really spread my wings. And so you see in the first column of market crediting operations, I picked up digital. My next job, I was very purposeful about doing something in high tech and also globally. So I've been doing global jobs since the early 2000s. Manager of a small team, managed analytics, so kind of overseeing the production of analytics. And then really the reputation that I got and have really used as my calling card is that I can explain this stuff to your grandma. So, most of us who've gone to college have taken that one undergraduate statistics course, but those of us who spent 10 years in college and 20 years doing work, the burden is really on us to convince business leaders to take actions using data. The next era, something amazing happened in my career, and that thing was called the smartphone, right? And so the iPhone comes out in 2007-ish, and data explodes all over the place, right? So now your toaster captures data, now your refrigerator captures data, now your car captures data, everything captures data. And the question is, who's going to do what with it? What decisions can you make now that you have it? And so, I picked up some additional skills, HR analytics, consulting, moved into financial services, insurance, and banking, and really pivoted my career from managing to leading. There's a difference. Managing is simply the administration of people and, the making sure that the people and processing technology and information is aligned. Leading is more about how do you inspire people to do greater things than they thought they could do by themselves. So developing talent was really something that I really pivoted my career towards. Sure, I'm a card-carrying analyst and I can talk statistics with the best of them, but really that's not what differentiates you as a leader. And so really up until then, right, is your competence in the space matters. You can get stuff done in the second column, the third, you're starting to drive value. But really, this last era is really what, excuse me, is really what, is where I've been aiming for ever since the very beginning. You've got to have a vision for your career. You've got to have a vision for your business. Imagine a place where, you are, on top and you're doing the things that you've always dreamt you could, and then work your way backwards and say, what are the steps I have to take? So, one, I was incredibly blessed. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Two, I was very planful. And then three, I was just lucky because of the explosion of data. So if you look at the late 1990s, you see .com coming about in the early 2000s. You're seeing mobile come about 2007-ish, 2008-ish, and then now you have connected vehicles. GM has, we have about 15 million vehicles that throw off about, data every 3 seconds from about 900 sensors. And so, the question is, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to help customers, do the things that they want to do? How are you going to drive value for the business using that stuff? And that's really what I've spent my time doing. So I spent a lot of time, not only internally driving cultural transformation, but also trying to be a source. So, other companies call me up and say, hey, we know you're probably not interested, but, we're thinking about doing this chief thing. How would you do it if you were us? And so, I pride myself in being able to say that, probably 10 other companies that I've talked to have now, created an organization based upon what I recommended. And that's being a game changer for the space. Next slide, please. Okay, so why analytics and opportunity? You can click through each of these. You can go ahead and click through, I believe there's 6 of them. Basically, there's a lot of research going on right now that's basically saying that if you use data, you get better outcomes, right? So, from the very beginning, earnings per share, all the way through to, sales lift of 3 to 7%. And what really has attracted me to the careers, one, I love to solve problems, but two, there are very few careers where you can say because of what you did, you got this much bump in the business. Obviously, if you're in sales, if you're in marketing, you can do that. But a lot of other roles, you really can't say that. And so if you're kind of starting your career, you always want to go where the money is. Because if you go where the money is, the rest follows. And so, we have high concentrations of us in HR and legal, and now there are a lot of diversity and inclusion officers. But those people often get overlooked when it comes time for the big promotional opportunities. There's no knock on those careers at all, so please don't take it that way. But but if you can talk about your value, even if you're in one of those roles, if you can talk about the value you bring to the company, you're in a much better position to face a downturn. In my field, I'm still getting calls from recruiters, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic. Why? Because people are starting to recognize that this role can generate value for the business, and there are very few people who've done it, particularly at the types of brands that I've worked for. And so, there's a lot of attention placed on space, rightfully so. And so, if you have, a teenager who's thinking about, what to major in, the data sciences are basically a recession-proof job. I've never seen a downturn with regards to analytics professionals, particularly those who are good at communicating their value. And so if I could encourage anyone to do that, or if you're thinking about a career change, the pandemic is a great time to rethink your business or career. There are all kinds of certificates. There are all kinds of things that you can do that you might not have to go all the way back to school, for a full degree for, because there's a shortage. There's a shortage of about 150,000 Americans who know how to do this work. And it's a shame that, we have this shortage and then I have to go offshore to hire people to do stuff when, our communities could be benefiting. So that's another one of the things that I've been trying to evangelize to communities of color and, inner cities is that, this is a great profession. You've got to start early so that you can get good at math. but at this, but there will be a payback, and the payback is big time. Next slide, please. Okay, so 15 minutes in, we get to the opening conversation. Don't click through the bills just yet. So analytics is all around us. If you watch Governor Cuomo, he's always talking about the numbers. Governor Cuomo of New York. If numbers are all around us, and they really define, things that we probably hadn't really thought of in the past. I have, because this is what I do for a living. But you're hearing more people say, well, let's find out what the data tell us, and then from there, we'll make our decisions. And so let me tell you this little story, once again, about storytelling. But this is not him, but my old barber in Oakland, when we lived there, he didn't take appointments, which I thought was nuts, but that was his thing. It was kind of old school. He didn't believe and so I'd been going to him for a while, and he knew that I was a customer. And basically, he said, anytime you come in, you're next. And I'm like, well, how are we going to, got people waiting? And he's like, don't worry about that. Right. So it happened one day. I got in, and then I was next. The guy was like, hey, man, what are you doing? I've been sitting here. And so Terry broke it down. And he was kind of old school, street hustle kind of guy. And he says, the way I figure, this guy's put about $50,000 in my pocket over the past couple of years. And I know he comes in every single week like clockwork and brings his son and refers people. And you come in every once in a while, you never tip. And, I can't, you probably put a couple $100 in my pocket over the same period of time. Who would you give Preston pick? So click through here. So he said about $50,000. So I had to go home and do it, of course, because that's what I do. And he was about right. It was pretty close that we had put almost $50,000 in his pocket. And at the end of the day, I expect to be treated better than the cat who put $200 in his pocket or $500 in. At the end of the day, this is all about knowing your customer, knowing their value, and giving them better treatment than everybody else. If you're in a business, and that could be maybe your customer's an internal client, right? So I do work for the marketing department. Well, if they're repeat customers, they're making us look good, they're sharing credit, well, I'm going to be overly enthusiastic of doing business. But if they're stealing credit for the work that I've given them, and they never really, share or talk us up or anything like that, well, maybe I don't spend that much time with you. You've got to double down in the areas that are the highest value for you. So next click, please. At the end of the day, better customers are more valuable, period. And this is not a democracy. This is not about fairness. Everybody should get at least bronze level treatment, but don't treat everybody like they're diamond level. And we experience this with our airlines, or with, if you're a member of any clubs, like the restaurants or whatever, you expect to be treated better. You expect to get spiffed on stuff. And so at the end of the day, if you want to be successful, you got to double down on where you're getting the most value, and stop wasting your time with people who don't bring you any value. And that falls in any kind of profession. It doesn't matter if you're selling something or if you're simply providing a service to an internal client of the business. Don't waste your time with people who don't want to hear it or they don't value your stuff. Next slide, please. Okay, real quick. Next slide. Here's some theory. This is a very old article, but it's still, oh my gosh, it's so relevant, right? I mean, companies can do one of three things, and they try to do those things to drive value. So operational excellence is really about reducing costs. Look through this.
Charles, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. You click through the next two. There we go. All right. So there, let's pause there. So operational excellence, yeah, it's a temporary fix, but I mean, and you can use analytics to drive, better efficiency and those sorts of things, and so that's smart. Product differentiation is that's great, because you want to have the most relevant products, but other companies are fast followers. It'll be very hard for you to differentiate your product for very long. It's almost immediate, almost immediately obsolete. But really, customer intimacy, really knowing your customer, just like my barber, knowing your customer, and then predicting when they're going to come in, spiffing them. He used to give out these little poker chips every once in a while, and redeemed for a free haircut. And I got chips, and other people didn't get chips, and people wonder why they didn't get chips. And he would tell them. He would say, "Well, because this guy does this." When you have intimacy with your customer, once again, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're in business, they'll keep coming back to you, and then they'll keep making you look good. Next slide, please. All right, you can go ahead and click through this. So who's the customer? Do we know who they are? What's their value? What's our value to them? If you can't tell your customer why you're valuable to them, you need to go back and rethink your business if you're an entrepreneur, or if you need to rethink your career. If you can't say, here are the things I do for you, whether you see them or not, right? And ultimately, you've got to know, not only who they are, but how they engage with you and the like. Next click in the next slide. All right. So the last bullet there is about being relevant in time. So pause right here. Okay. So I'm sure you know who this is. This is Alicia Keys, and this is her from the video. You don't know my name. And I'm going to use this video, and we're not going to play it, but I'm going to use this video to show how intimacy with the customer helps you close the deal. So over to the left, she says, I'm going to call this boy. Hello, can I speak to Mike? Won't read it all to you, so do the first click. Difficulty. There we go. All right. So I always wondered how she had his phone number. I guess maybe he left a card or something. But ultimately, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're in business, knowing who you're talking to and making sure they know who you are is critical. Particularly like now that we're on Zoom and we're in these other things, you got to know who's there, and you got to know who they are. You got to know what they like to be called. Don't call me Charlie, right? Some people just take liberties. Don't call me Charlie. I mean, my parents call me Charlie, but that's not my business name. My business name, I prefer to be more formal. She identified herself in a place of business. So make sure people know who you are. Make sure people know you're present and engaged, right? She knew his behavioral pattern when he visits, what he orders, right? You come in every Wednesday. You always order the special with hot chocolate. And the last one. And then she upgrades his, he's high value because he comes all the time. Despite the fact that her manager be tripping and stuff, she always takes care of him because she thinks he's kind of sweet. Next click through in the next slide. All right, now she recognized it for success. Flattery never hurts. She captured information, but she didn't want to waste your time. And I know girls don't usually do this. She invited him to a VIP only event, right? So can we get together outside the restaurant one day? And then she closed the deal. She didn't talk past the sale. Once he said yes, done. Now we're getting together, right? So there you have customer relationship management, or customer experience management in a nutshell, using Alicia Keys, and she probably didn't even know that she was offering this great advice to her. Next slide. It's got a lot of builds. So here's a quiz. Stop right there. All right, now, who's more valuable? Forget the math, and I'll show you a simple equation. Who deserves better treatment across the life cycle, right? So on one side, you've got a customer who bought an Escalade, all right? So that's our highest value, most expensive vehicle, right? So we tend to gravitate towards the whales. Wow, there's really great opportunity there. But if you look at the total part of the total relationship you have with them, you see that they're really not that great of a customer, other than the fact that they bought your most expensive car and they don't call you all the time and bug you about stuff. But they don't really do, they haven't bought like the high margin OnStar package. They don't come in for service or accessories, which is where we make a lot of our margin, right? And then, yes, they have a low cost to serve, but they have a questionable likelihood of purchasing another vehicle because we know that conquest rates or excuse me, that defection rates are pretty high among first-time buyers. That's information we know, but we historically would gravitate towards that customer. But on the other side, you can click through that one. Next time I won't have so many builds. We see that she's a repeat Chevy customer. So, okay, so what's the sum total of all of the vehicles she bought? It might be more than that one-time Escalade. She financed, but sometimes at a higher rate, so we make more money on that. She's sometimes late, so we get some late fee money. She has OnStar. She's tried the service. She's loyal to the service lane. She tricks out her vehicle, low cost to serve, and she's likely to be a customer for life. So many times we tend to think of the whale as getting all of the attention, and I described that for you earlier. But if you have an opportunity to grow a relationship with a customer, they over the lifetime might even be, more valuable than a one-time only purchase. So, but that's not even using any math. This is common sense, right? And so, next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So this is, although the equation is much more complex than this, basically it's the revenue generated by each of the things across the top minus the cost to serve times what we call a survival rate. That's an expected length of their relationship equals an expected lifetime value. And so if you, once again, now let's say this is their third car, well, then you multiply this equation times three, because, they are continuously coming back and buying from you. And, this works in life too, right? I mean, it's like, well, your dependable friends are the ones that you want to spend your time with, the ones who aren't going to go tell your business to everybody, the ones who are going to give you good advice and keep you out of trouble. The ones who have demonstrated value over time. That's where you want to spend your time. You don't want to spend your time with people who are, one and done, or they just, come out and, every once in a while they get together, or the only time they talk is when they need something, or when they want to gossip or whatever it is. These principles are universal. They can work anywhere. And so I would encourage you to kind of think like an analyst. Next slide, please. All right. You have to think about life cycle management. Click one last one. There you go. Many times companies spend all their time on the acquisition piece. And, that's great. You have to have a constant stream of new customers. But I would encourage you to look at the hole in your bucket as you pour more water in. And what you might find is that, yes, you've got a good acquisition, but you've got a huge retention problem, for example. Or you have people who sign up but never use the product, and so therefore they're a high, risk of defection. Or they come on with one product but they never buy anything else from you. They might keep that one product, but they never you don't get to cross sell them or any kinds of other opportunities to drive more revenue, drive more value. This works even in my job, right? Which is less with my internal customers. Yes, okay, internal customer comes to me for the first time, they want us to do a project. Okay, well, here's what it's like to work with us. Here's the person that's going to be your personal engagement person. Okay, once we do something for you, we want to make sure that you're going to use it and you're going to get benefit from the dashboard that we deliver or from the predictive model we deliver to you or whatever it might be. And then we want to get you hooked on our other products because there are other things we can do for you to enrich the relationship. And if people aren't using it and they haven't called us in a while and the like, those are big flags for them not doing business with us and maybe doing business with another group or going externally for some third party. And then finally, you do have to, once again, just consider this a cradle to grave opportunity. And you've got to really manage the relationship all the way through, even if you lose them, because if you make it painful for them to stop doing business with you, you'll never win them back. If you make it easy, then you have the opportunity to re-win their business. Next slide, please. Okay, so go ahead and click through all these so we don't have to wait. It looks like it's working. This is back to the same guy, first-time Escalade buyer, and how would insights, help them? Okay, conquest customers are vulnerable, so we need to roll out the red carpet. First-time buyer, congratulations. Let's drop it by your house. Let's roll out the red carpet. Congratulations on your purchase. Congratulations on being successful, because not just anybody can buy an Escalade. Really roll out the red carpet. Use your good contact information. And keep that updated so that you can use monthly invoices for cross-sell. You want to make sure that people understand the products, the breadth of the product that they have, and make sure that they use it. So when you onboard them, you might want to offer free services, concierge-style services that make it easy for them to do business with you. And then you want to offer, deep discounts if people aren't using your stuff, because you're trying to get stickiness so that they become a repeat buyer. And if you don't hear from them at all, complete silence is not good. So you want to reach out periodically and make sure that they're okay, they're still enjoying your product, etc. This stuff works. Once again, not just for entrepreneurs or businesses, but even in life, right? You want to, periodically make sure people are receiving the benefits of their relationship with you. And so you want to constantly do a pulse check on that. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm a member of Eastside Church of Christ in Austin, Texas, and you can use data and analytics anywhere to help drive strategy, right? And so the coronavirus situation has forced churches to rethink, services, rethink, how to keep members engaged, to rethink technology and the use of technology to drive higher engagement. So they asked me to do some work to take a look at, I offered, they didn't necessarily know what I did. And what we found is, like in like most major cities, historically Black churches were founded in historically Black areas, but as time has progressed in integration and new people moving in, those neighborhoods aren't quite the same. And so care groups 7 and 8 are on the east side of town, and if you come through Austin, east side is getting gentrified like crazy. And so what you find is, if you look at the distribution of from where members come and how much time they spend, how much time they spend driving, you're realizing that people are passing 4 or 5 other churches before they get to you. So what are you doing to make sure that they're still happy and engaged and what have you? We have a digital, like a barcode card, and it's on an app. That allows the leadership to track when people are coming into the building, and there are triggers that we have put in place that if someone has lagged by X amount of time, they get a personal reach out by a name that they would know in the congregation, and the like. And so, but really, having to do service at home, and providing new ways to participate, like on Wednesday nights. We almost never get to Bible class on Wednesday night because the church is like an hour away. Like, probably not gonna happen, right? So, but if they had something online, yeah, I would be very, very likely to participate. So you can use this. You can use this stuff anywhere. You can use it for your household. You can use it. I mean, data and analytics are all around us, and they can be used to drive strategies and make smarter decisions on every single thing we do. Click through the last bumper sticker, and then last piece. Next slide, please. And close. You can go ahead and click to the next one. There we go. Hidden Figures, one of my favorite movies, but also one of my most frustrating points being an adult, because this movie came out just a few years ago, and I like to pride myself on being up on Black history, and I had no idea that these women existed. And I'm like, how many other stories are like this? There are probably a ton of them. And stories just don't get told because we don't own the pen. But what I'd like you to do is kind of, if you've seen the movie, if you haven't, you must see it. It is an absolute must. It's a great inspiration to young women and to young black women in particular. But basically, if you go back to the movie, you're likely to be the only one in the room, right? If you're a person of color, you're a woman. On my boss's direct staff, there are like 10 of us, and only one's a woman. I mean, I'm like, huh? It's 2020, really? But you always got to bring your A game, always. And if you recall, when they were up at the chalkboard, they couldn't figure out that equation. Taraji P. Henson, she was prepared to show her point of view, and she wasn't afraid to speak up. Got it. You can't just sit there silently. And many times, we either because of our hierarchy, where we sit in the hierarchy, if we're in a room, or maybe because we're less confident or whatever. The good practice is to always say, okay, here's the topic of the meeting. Let me read the materials beforehand. And I'm going to do this in this meeting. I'm at least going to ask one good question, or I'm going to offer one good point. And I'm going to make a point of doing that in every single meeting, right? Which is going to force you to read the materials, know why you're there, and because otherwise, you just don't get invited anymore. People are like, this person comes, they don't ever say anything, so I guess they're not adding value. So let's trim the list, right? If you remember, Delmay, when she was attempting to go to school at night, she went and talked to the judge, but she knew everything about him. He was a first generation college student. He worked 2 jobs or whatever it was, but she did her homework and she knew who her audience was, right? And I think the third and most important thing you can do is Octavia Spencer demonstrated learning agility. So, another thing I did not know was that computers were people back then, and that they were black women computers. Everyone else was terrified when they heard about this thing called IBM, but she said, I'm going to learn how to work this, and I'm going to demonstrate some value. So, not being terrified about the unknown, but leveraging what you know how to do, and studying up on it, learning how to pivot is something that's really critical because this labor market is ever changing, and knowing what's hot and what's going to be hot and what's next and getting out in front of that is the name of the game. People used to work one career their whole lives, but now people work 2 or 3 different careers over their lifetime, and your ability to demonstrate learning agility is a valuable tool. I have a good friend who is a retired 3-star general. He used to work at USAA with me. He's now CEO of a company, and he was given an assignment, and I'm like, Steve, you've never done this before. He's like, Charles, why do you think they call us generals? I mean, we have a general knowledge of how the military works, but I'm not a specialist in anything. But I might work this, the motor pool in one job, and I might work that, logistics in another job, and I might do recruitment in another job. And they don't ask us if we've ever done it before or if we're ever comfortable with it. They just stick us out there and we just do it. Great lesson. So three B's. Be bold, be brilliant, and be brief. And with that, I have finished 1 minute earlier than I expected. So we'll open up for questions.
All right. So first of all, I know that many of us are on mute, but let's do the snapping for Charles. Charles, absolutely amazing as usual. So thank you so much for this great presentation. And with that, we're going to go ahead and start our questions. So the first question that we have for you is from Alex Preston. We have seen a steady increase in sports regarding data analytics. Where do you see this evolving next?
On sports, yeah. Well, so sports have always been very data heavy from the standpoint of counting things that happen. So points and rebounds and assists and the like in basketball. Baseball is very well known for all of its statistics, but only very recently have people been using data more proactively. So if you haven't seen the movie or read the book, there's a book called Moneyball, Moneyball is all about how a statistician working for the Oakland A's worked with a guy named Billy Beane, who's the general manager, and they created a team that was successful, but there were no stars on the team because what they did was they said, let's look at the numbers and who gets on base really well and who's good at stealing and who's really good at on base percentage and slugging percentage and all of the different stats. And then they kind of said, well, let's sample it out and let's test it. So they were able to become a playoff team without without having any real stars because they picked people who complemented each other well. This person's going to get on base a lot, and this person's really good for driving, runs batted in. And so put them in the order, in the lineup, in this order so that we can maximize our chance of scoring a point or scoring a run. Same thing in basketball. I'm starting to see more and more of where NFL teams, the NFL has a me, the NBA has a me, because they want to optimize ticket sales and they want to maximize the purchase of cross-selling merchandise and things like that. So they want to do the exact same thing I just described for you, using a barber or using a car dealer or whatever. But they want to do that. The next horizon for sports, however, is wearables, right? Because so the NFL is sampling the idea of putting in chips in helmets so that they can truly measure the impact, like no kidding, and they can understand how the human body works in the equipment so that they can optimize the equipment for safety and for speed. And so, that was a very long answer, but it's really amazing how they're using data and analytics, not only for revenue, but also for safety in that space.
All right, thank you, Charles. The next question comes from, let's see, who is this? This is from Tamika. So Tamika Barnes says, how important are testimonials? Hard to tell which ones are real or fake.
Yeah. I think testimonials are good, but I think ratings are better. So it's good to have a testimonial, but you can always cherry pick the good ones and leave out the bad ones. If they're used to supplement the fact that, so whenever we pick a restaurant, we'll go to Open Table, and I want to know, what's the rating, and then I want to know how many people actually participated. So if a restaurant's got like 1,500, people who rated and they give you 5 stars, that's a good restaurant, right? If 50 people went there, who knows? It could be bad. It might be good. So testimonials are good, but they're singular in points in time. I tend to look for aggregate views that are more reflective of a whole bunch of people who've gone there. And also, if they're open at any time and I can always get a table, that's not a good sign either.
No, that is not a good sign. All right, so next question is from Kim Smith. Client intimacy is key. What are ways you can stay up to date on the changing problems that your client has? This way your offer is always relevant.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to stay up on, what's the broader economy, right? So what's going on in the broader economy? What's going on in their industry? So, if let's say you are working with someone who's in industrial, well, you want to know, well, how's COVID impacting them? And are there locations that are more impacted than others? Are there things that they can do to shift their strategy so that they can be more open, whatever it might be? I think that the reading up and really getting to know the industry, if they are publicly traded, reading up on their financial report, their annual report, I think that's very important. And even if you're applying for a job, I think if you don't read their annual report, then you're really undercutting your likelihood for success. And then finally, it's just periodically reaching out and talking to them, saying, hey, I'm hearing some things about the industry. Is that impacting you? And is there anything that we can do to help you during this time period? And so the periodic reaching out, and then also if you have for example, a digital business, If you're seeing that they're not really engaging with you that much, then that's a telltale sign that something's going on and you should reach out. So kind of monitoring their engagement with your products and their engagement with your website or whatever it might be, I think that's also something that's very important to do. That's less obtrusive than asking them directly.
All right. So next question is, and Kim, did I answer your question for you? I see you shaking your head. Okay. All right. So next up is from Mandy J. And Mandy says, I'm in my first official year of my marketing business. What advice can you give for providing numbers to clients when I only have a small number of clients that I've worked with? Also, I too am from Baton Rouge, so this blessed me.
All right. So I think that the thing is, if you don't have a lot of customers, what you have to do is, what ROI do you deliver for them? So until you have a lot of numbers, you've got to focus on the numbers you've got. So what you want to do is say, hey, here's a story. Let me tell a story about a dry cleaner that they really wanted to expand their business customers. Here's what they were doing in the past. They were doing lots of print media. They were in the yellow pages. They had a website, blah, blah, blah. But what I did was we tested the idea of some coupons. We did some direct mail. We bought an email list for the people who live in the zip code near the store, and we promoted the business and bring this coupon in and get 25% off. Or we established a new program. It's like, pay a flat fee and do all the dry cleaning you want every month. Or there's so many different things. And then here's how their business grew. Here's the before. Here's the stuff we did. Here's the after, and here's the payback of that. So they paid me $100,000 and they got $1 million worth of revenue for it. I'll take that investment any day of the week. And so you don't have to have a lot of use cases like that, but the ones you have need to be very specific about what it is you did, incremental to what they were doing, and then how the results are better because of what you recommend.
Okay. All right, I see Mandy shaking her head. So Charles, the last question that I want to offer up to you, and if there are any more last questions, please type them in and I'll make sure we try to get it in. But we know that this is a very challenging time for both small business owners and also for corporate professionals. So some corporate professionals are in the middle of experiencing layoffs or concerned about the future of their job. And for small business owners, some are having to pivot quickly or make a hard decision about sunsetting the business. What are some tips you can give about really making sure that you're making the best informed decision when you're having to think about either potentially shutting your business down, pivoting, or making a major career change?
Yeah. So, I think the thing is, during this time, let's start with the employee side, the entrepreneur side. On the employee side, you just need to continue to make sure people know what value you bring and continue to recognize that, you're not someone that they should be letting go if the decision comes down to that. I think also staying engaged and connected with your direct boss is important, and and making sure that they recognize that losing hurt. And so I think that's also very important. I think the third thing is that you should always be networking and always out on LinkedIn and reaching out to people as a safety net. Because even when things are going well, even when you just got the job, you should always be networking because you never know. And people tend to get the job and then they don't update their resume. They do some lackluster update on LinkedIn, but they don't really make a big deal about it. They don't really continue the hustle that they had to get the job. They kind of get comfortable. And so I would recommend you do that. And then lastly, as a precaution, I would get to know what the policies are regarding separations. And so, you want to know, okay, they're going to give me a 3 month severance and I can start filing for unemployment at this time, or I'm going to get some counseling, free counseling, career counseling as I exit. You want to know all of those things so that you can take advantage of them, because what often happens is people in the know take advantage of those services and people who aren't don't. And so we get laid off and we're like permanently laid off, as opposed to someone who can exit in making a safe and sound transition to a new opportunity. And so always demonstrate value, always network, and know what the policies and the rules are so you can take full advantage of everything that's being offered to you. Um, for an entrepreneur, that's a harder question. I mean, because it really depends on the kind of business you're in, and if that business will be permanently impacted by, the situation that we're in. I mean, there's certain businesses that, will largely dry up because we won't transact, in certain ways. And so, if your business is one of those, it's a good time to think about a transition. And then if there is, but then before you do that, you want to say, was there any way I can provide this service or this product, in a different way? Is this a great opportunity? So, for example, a lot of car dealers in states where they're only allowed to be open for service but not for sales have really done a big digital push, right? To try to do as much of this. We've been talking about this for years. You hate when you get a car dealer. You've agreed to buy the car, and then they take you to the back, and then they just molest you for 4 hours, try to sell you all this extra stuff. And we've been talking about, why don't make that digital, and forget all the paperwork, get that done before you come to the dealer, and then you just walk in and walk out. And what a great, we've been talking about that for years, but now you have to do it. If you're going to sell a car, you can't spend a lot of time face to face with that person. So I think it's there are ways to get innovative during times like this. And I would say if you go back to if when all this is said and done, if you go back to doing business the exact same way that you've always done business, then you will have missed a once in a career, once in a lifetime opportunity. If you're not rethinking what's next for me in a job and starting to plant those seeds, and you just let this time pass, you've missed a once in a lifetime opportunity. Hopefully, it's once in a lifetime. And then also opportunities for wellness as well. I mean, are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking enough water? I mean, this is a great time to kind of rethink your walk with God, rethink your relationship with your family. What else you got to do? You're on the phone or on video chat all the time. And I'm not 100% engaged all the time. Sorry, but some meetings I'm like, okay, well, I'll finish my taxes or whatever. But it's a wonderful time, and so don't view it as negative. And I know that it's easy for me to say that because different people are in different situations, but you have to use this as an opportunity to pivot, and you're forced to. I mean, all the things that you've been saying you wanted to do, now is the time to do it, simply because you have the time to do it. You're not in the car 2 hours a day anymore. You're not, and really, my heart goes out to folks who have small kids at home who are having to, manage that and teach them, what have you. But take some time for yourself. Go for a walk. Try to stay active. Don't sit in the same chair. I have one of 5 or 6 places in the house where I'll take meetings from. One includes my closet. And so, if you're always in the same seat, the same place, doing the same thing, life gets really, really monotonous, and then you kind of inadvertently check out, and you can't afford to do that during this time.
Wow. So Charles, I think we have time for just one last question. And this is from Shanine. When reaching out to customers, is there a time you should stop reaching out? For instance, we have a monthly newsletter. Should we remove anyone that does not open the email or just leave them and keep sending?
I would take them off. And the reason why is you're obviously not reaching them. And I know it doesn't cost that much. It costs like a penny. But it's about being efficient, and don't waste your time on things that don't work. If you have something new to talk to them about, or an offer that might re-stimulate their interest in you, their interest in why they joined you in the first place, that's good. Or if you have a survey that you're trying to capture feedback on, the product they already have from you, or why they stopped talking to you, or anything like that. That would be very useful. But I mean, continuing to blast to people, I mean, that's the thing that I have more than one personal email account for that reason, right? I have one that just gets loaded up with crap that I haven't had time to unsubscribe from, and then there's one I transact business on, right? So, and then I have, my work one. So, I would stop it, and because you just, even though you can kind of do it in a brainless way, you don't want to, I mean, because you don't have to think about it, it just happens. Yeah, but is that really how you want to run your business? I mean, I would want to be very orderly and planful in the things that I do and how I spend my time and how I spend my resources. Lose you? Okay. Monica, are you on mute?
Monica's on mute.
Monica, can't hear you.
All right, can y'all hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. We missed your words.
So Charles, I'm so excited. I'm just over here giving you all these props and no one can hear them. So let's just give it up for Charles one more time. Give the snaps. And one thing that Charles alluded to at the beginning is just the time that we're in and really making sure that we are thinking about the essential workers. And so our team has taken upon ourselves for all the books that are purchased this month, we are going to buy a lunch, sponsor a lunch for an essential worker. So if you have not had a chance to read my book, Treating Your Brand of Fortune 100 Company, please gift this to a college graduate or a person who is starting their business or a corporate professional or to yourself. But go to treatyourbrandfortune100company.com for every book that's purchased this month. We will be giving a gift to giving a free lunch to an essential worker. And with that, we're also excited to announce our speaker for next week. So we are hoping that each of you will join us again next week. We're excited to be joined by Alicia Thompson, who is the VP of Communications for Randstad. And so what she's going to be talking to us about is really making sure that you're effectively communicating in this virtual environment. So Charles, one of the things that you just said is that those of us who have kids and managing through this and trying to do our business, do our work, and also manage family life. So how can you continue to have that power presence and effectively communicate in this virtual environment? So when we send the recap email out today, that registration link will be there for you to go ahead and sign up. You all are the first to know about our session next week. And we are always looking to improve, so there will be a survey also included in there for you to give us feedback. But once again, I have thoroughly enjoyed, Charles, the great information you shared today. I am all about us beginning on time and ending on time. So it is 1 minute before the top of the hour, and I want to say to each of you to please stay safe and to please, join us again next week. But we hope that you have found this valuable and that you're going to take some of the great tools and techniques that Charles discussed today to implement either in your career or in your business. So with that, we wish all of you a wonderful day. Thank you again, Charles, and thank you everyone for joining us. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, Charles. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank
You're so welcome. Thank you, guys. You're so welcome.
Thanks, Monica.
You're so welcome. All right, bye, Caroline. Bye, Charles. I'm going to log us on off now.
How do I log off?
You should just be able to close it out.